Hello, people. For the last few years, I thought my marriage was solid. I'm not saying it was perfect, no relationship is, but I genuinely believed Anna and I were happy. We had our routines, our inside jokes, and what I thought was an unshakable bond. Turns out I was wrong. Very wrong. It all started one evening when Anna left her phone on the kitchen counter while she went to take a shower. She usually kept her phone glued to her side, so the fact that she left it out in the open was unusual. I wasn't trying to snoop, I swear I wasn't. But a notification lit up the screen, and my eyes caught it before I even realized what I was looking at. The message was short but gut-wrenching. When can I come over? Is your stupid husband still home? Because your beloved Alex misses you already. I froze. For a second, I thought maybe I was imagining things, but there it was, clear as day. My chest tightened and I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My first instinct was to march into the bathroom, demand answers, and throw her phone at the wall. But I didn't. I took a deep breath and forced myself to think rationally. That message wasn't just a casual flirt. It was a blatant, in-your-face declaration of betrayal. This wasn't a one-off thing. There was a level of familiarity, comfort in the way they talked about me, like I was some clueless idiot standing in the way of their fun. It wasn't just disrespectful, it was downright insulting. But here's the thing. I didn't react. Not right away. Instead, I put the phone back, exactly where she'd left it, and walked away. My mind was spinning, my stomach churning, but I knew better than to confront her in the heat of the moment. She didn't deserve the satisfaction of seeing me lose my cool. If she thought I was a stupid husband, she had no idea what I was capable of. That night, I lay in bed next to her, pretending to be asleep, while my mind raced. Who the hell was Alex? How long had this been going on? And most importantly, how was I going to handle it? I wasn't going to let her betrayal ruin my life. No. If Anna and her beloved Alex thought they could disrespect me like this, I was going to make sure they both paid for it. But I wasn't going to lash out blindly. If there's one thing I've learned in life, it's that revenge is best served calculated and cold. So I decided I'd play the long game. If Anna wanted to treat me like a fool, I'd show her exactly what happens when you underestimate someone. I wasn't just going to expose her, I was going to make her regret every decision that led to this moment. And as for Alex, well, let's just say he was about to have a very bad time. Before I dive into what happened next, let me give you some context about who Anna and I are and how we ended up here. I met Anna 8 years ago at a night bar. She was magnetic, bright, confident, and just the right amount of sarcastic. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room, and I fell for her hard. We started dating soon after, and within 2 years we were married. At first, life with Anna felt like a dream. She worked in marketing, and I ran my own small IT consulting business. We were both busy, but we always made time for each other. Date nights, weekend getaways, even lazy Sundays binge-watching shows. We had our rhythm, and it worked. At least I thought it did. Over time, though, things started to shift. Anna's career began to take off, and she threw herself into her work with an intensity that was equal parts impressive and overwhelming. She thrived in the fast-paced, competitive world of marketing, but it came at a cost. She started staying late at the office, traveling more for work conferences, and bringing her stress home with her. I tried to be understanding. I thought I was being a supportive husband by giving her space to chase her ambitions. But now looking back, I realized I was blind to the cracks forming beneath the surface. Little things started to change. She stopped laughing at my jokes. Our conversations grew shorter, less personal. She was always on her phone. And when I asked her about it, she'd brush me off with a vague, just work stuff. I chalked it up to stress. I figured every marriage has its ups and downs, and we'd find our way back to each other eventually. What's ironic is that I always thought of Anna as the center of my universe. I worked hard to give us a comfortable life, to make her happy. She'd tell me she appreciated me, that she was proud of me, and I believed her. I thought we were a team. But now I know she was just playing her part, keeping up appearances while living a completely different life behind my back. The message I found that night wasn't just a betrayal, it was a wake-up call. The woman I thought I knew, the life I thought we'd built together, was a lie. And the worst part? She didn't even seem to care enough to hide it well. She left her phone out in the open, as if daring me to find the evidence. Maybe she thought I was too trusting, too naive to ever suspect her. Well, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let Alex walk away unscathed either. They had both made their choices. And now it was time for me to make mine. Once I decided to act, my first step was figuring out exactly who Alex was. I couldn't go after him until I knew everything about him. If Anna wanted to betray me with some random guy, I'd make sure I wasn't going into this blind. The name in the message was my starting point. Alex. No last name, no details, just a name. But that was enough. Over the next few days, I became a detective in my own home, quietly piecing together clues without tipping Anna off. First, I watched her habits. When she was on her phone, she always angled the screen away from me. If I walked into the room, she'd quickly swipe out of whatever app she was using or lock the screen entirely. That told me one thing. Whatever she was hiding, it was on her phone. I waited until she was asleep one night, then slipped her phone off the nightstand. Her password hadn't changed, and within minutes I was scrolling through her messages. I found Alex almost immediately. Their conversations were intimate, to say the least. He wasn't just some fling. He was someone she cared about, or at least pretended to. They exchanged photos, plans, and even stupid pet names. My stomach turned with every word I read. One text thread in particular caught my attention. Alex had sent her a selfie at what looked like a gym with the caption, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Got to get through leg day first." A gym. That was my first real clue. The next morning, while Anna was in the shower, I searched the car for any signs of where she'd been. Sure enough, I found a gym membership card tucked into the glove compartment. One for a fitness club not far from our house. I didn't even know she'd joined a gym, which told me it wasn't about fitness. It was about him. From there, it wasn't hard to track Alex down. A quick online search of the gym's members and tags on social media led me straight to his Instagram. Alex was exactly what I expected. One of those overconfident, cocky guys who posted shirtless gym selfies and pictures of his flashy sports car. His bio read, "Sales manager, fitness enthusiast, living my best life." Yeah, I'll bet. The deeper I dug, the more I found. Alex had a public LinkedIn profile listing his job and the company he worked for, a big-name dealership where he sold luxury cars. He also had a habit of oversharing on social media, posting about his workouts, his expensive lifestyle, and his philosophy on success. It didn't take long for me to figure out what kind of person I was dealing with. But Alex's overconfidence turned out to be his Achilles heel. He was so busy showing off that he didn't seem to realize how much he was exposing. He bragged about deals that sounded risky, even shady. He posted about lavish purchases that didn't quite add up with what I knew about his job. And he definitely had a few skeletons in his closet, the kind of skeletons I could use. Now I had everything I needed. His name, his job, his gym schedule, his online presence, and a growing list of weaknesses. Alex might have thought he was untouchable, but he was about to learn just how wrong he was. I wasn't going to confront Anna Lee. Not yet. No, the best way to dismantle this affair was to hit Alex where it hurt. By the time I was done, he'd regret ever laying eyes on my wife. With all the pieces in place, it was time to plan my next move. I didn't want a dramatic confrontation or a screaming match that would only give Anna the satisfaction of seeing me broken. No, I wanted to hit where it hurt the most, quietly, effectively, and without any room for escape. And Alex was the perfect starting point. From everything I'd uncovered, Alex was a man who thrived on appearances. His flashy Instagram posts, his bragging at work, his expensive car, all of it screamed insecurity wrapped in a shiny package. He wanted the world to see him as successful, powerful, untouchable. That's where I'd strike. The first step was to destabilize him professionally. Alex was a sales manager at a luxury car dealership, a job that likely depended on maintaining a squeaky clean reputation and hitting consistent targets. If I could shake things up at his workplace, his overconfidence would do the rest. But I wasn't going to stop there. His social media hinted at financial instability with lavish spending that didn't seem to match his income. Credit cards, loans, maybe even debts he couldn't handle. It was all speculation for now. but I was going to dig deeper. Money and status were clearly his weaknesses, and I was going to exploit them. As for Anna, I continued to act like everything was fine. If she noticed that I was quieter than usual, she chalked it up to work stress. She had no idea that every smile I gave her was calculated, that every casual conversation was masking the storm I was preparing to unleash. She was too busy sneaking around to see what was coming. The beauty of this plan was its subtlety. I wasn't going to scream accusations or flip tables. I wasn't going to give her or Alex the satisfaction of knowing they'd gotten under my skin. Instead, I let the pieces fall into place one by one, dismantling their little fantasy until there was nothing left but rubble. My ultimate goal was simple: ruin Alex's life enough that he'd want nothing to do with Anna, make him regret ever stepping into my world. And as for Anna, she'd watch it all unfold, wondering how it all went wrong, before I finally exposed her for the liar she was. The satisfaction of imagining their downfall kept me calm and focused. If Alex thought he could waltz into my marriage and take what wasn't his, he was about to learn just how far I was willing to go to take everything back. It was time to set the plan in motion. The first step in my plan was simple: get close to Alex. I wasn't going to approach him as a vengeful husband. I needed him to think I was just another friendly guy, someone harmless, someone he could trust. I knew where to find him. His Instagram post practically screamed, "Look at me," with their constant gym selfies and check-ins. He worked out at the fitness club a few blocks away from our house, and his routine was as predictable as clockwork. Early evenings, 5 days a week, without fail. So one evening, I walked into that gym. I signed up for a membership, donned some workout gear, and made my way to the weightlifting section, where Alex was in the middle of his usual routine. He was easy to spot: a smug grin, a tight tank top, and an obnoxious habit of checking himself out in the mirror after every set. I waited for the right moment, then approached him as he was catching his breath between exercises. "Hey man," I said, keeping my tone casual. "You're killing it over here. Mind if I join you for a set?" He looked me over, clearly sizing me up, before flashing me a confident smile. "Sure thing, bro. Always good to have someone push you." We started working out together, and it didn't take long for Alex to open up. He was the type who loved to talk about himself, especially when he thought he had an audience. He bragged about his job, his car, his killer sales numbers, and, of course, his conquests. He didn't name Anna directly, but he dropped just enough hints to make my blood boil. "Man, let me tell you," he said, smirking as he wiped sweat from his brow. "There's nothing like being wanted, you know? Some women just can't resist a guy who knows what he wants." I forced a laugh, biting back the urge to knock that smug grin off his face. "Yeah, I hear you," I said, keeping my tone light. "Confidence is everything." Over the next few gym sessions, I made sure to build a rapport with him. I'd ask about his work, his hobbies, and, most importantly, his approach to success. The more he talked, the more he revealed. It was like he couldn't help himself. He even hinted at bending the rules at work, bragging about deals that sounded more like scams than legitimate transactions. Alex was arrogant, reckless, and completely unaware that he was handing me the ammunition I needed. The more I learned, the clearer my path became. I wasn't just going to hit him where it hurt. I was going to hit him everywhere. By the time we finished our last workout together that week, Alex was comfortable enough to call me bro. He had no idea who I really was, or how much I already knew about him. He thought I was just another guy who admired his success. But soon, he'd learn the truth. And when he did, it wouldn't be a friendly gym session. It would be the beginning of his downfall. Once Alex let his guard down, it didn't take long for me to uncover his vulnerabilities. The guy couldn't help but talk about himself, and every brag he made was like another piece of the puzzle falling into place. I listened, nodded, and acted impressed, all while taking mental notes. It turned out Alex wasn't as invincible as he liked to appear. Underneath the flashy exterior and cocky attitude, there were cracks. Big ones. The first weakness was his work. Alex prided himself on being a closer, the guy who could sell anything to anyone, but he was also cutting corners. He bragged about pushing risky deals past his bosses, making promises to clients he couldn't keep, and bending the rules just enough to stay under the radar. It was only a matter of time before that house of cards came crashing down. Then there was his financial situation. Alex loved his luxury lifestyle, designer suits, expensive watches, a leased sports car, but he was drowning in debt. He even admitted to juggling multiple credit cards to cover his expenses. "You gotta spend money to make money," he said one evening, flashing that trademark grin. I just smiled back, knowing how much that mentality was going to cost him. But his biggest vulnerability is his reputation. Alex lived for validation. He needed people to see him as successful, confident, and untouchable. The thought of losing that image would crush him. It was his Achilles heel, and I was going to exploit it. With this information in hand, I began laying the groundwork for the next phase of my plan. First, I needed to target his career. Alex's risky deals and shady tactics were bound to catch up with him, but I could speed up the process. I started researching his company, figuring out who his bosses were and how to make them aware of his questionable practices, without implicating myself, of course. At the same time, I started digging into his financial situation. A friend of mine worked in the financial sector and owed me a favor. With their help, I confirmed that Alex was deep in debt and barely keeping his head above water. His fancy car, his expensive gym membership, it was all a facade. And it wouldn't take much to push him over the edge. All the while, I kept meeting Alex at the gym, playing the role of his new buddy. I even encouraged his arrogance, asking him questions that would lead him to reveal more about his shady work deals and financial struggles. The more he talked, the more I knew my plan was going to work. Meanwhile, Anna was oblivious. She probably thought she was still pulling one over on me, sneaking off to see Alex whenever she could. Little did she know, the walls were closing in. Her golden boy was about to crumble, and when he did, she'd have no one left to turn to. It was time to set the traps and watch Alex's perfect little world come crashing down. The first step in taking Alex down was hitting him where it hurt most, his career. Alex's overconfidence and loose lips had given me plenty of ammunition, and now it was time to use it. I needed to make his bosses aware of the risks he was taking with their business, but without leaving any trace that it came from me. I knew Alex was attending an industry conference that week, one where his higher-ups would also be present. It was the perfect opportunity to plant the seed of doubt in their minds. Through some careful planning and a bit of networking, I managed to secure a casual meeting with one of Alex's supervisors during the event. When I approached his boss, let's call him Mr. Carter, I acted like a concerned outsider. "Hi, Mr. Carter," I said, shaking his hand. "I've heard great things about your dealership. You've got some real stars on your team, especially Alex." Carter smiled, clearly pleased. "Alex is one of our top performers," he said. "The guy's a closer." "Absolutely," I agreed, "but, I heard through the grapevine that some of those deals have been, well, let's just say, a little unconventional. Nothing major, of course, but it might be worth looking into. You know how clients talk." Carter's smile faltered. "Unconventional how?" he asked, his tone shifting. I shrugged, feigning ignorance. "I'm not sure of the specifics, just some chatter about aggressive promises and a few deals that might not be as solid as they seem. Could just be rumors, but I figured someone in your position would want to be aware." I left it at that, planting just enough doubt to spark a closer look at Alex's work. And it worked. A few days later, I heard through Alex himself during one of our gym sessions that his boss had started auditing his deals. He was rattled, pacing back and forth between sets and muttering about nitpicking and jealous coworkers. "They're making a big deal out of nothing," he grumbled, shaking his head. "I've closed more sales than anyone else on the team. This is just bullshit." I nodded sympathetically, hiding my satisfaction. "Sounds rough, man. Hope it blows over soon." But I knew it wouldn't. The more his bosses scrutinized his work, the more cracks they'd find, and with each warning or reprimand he received, his confidence would take another hit. By the end of the week, Alex had received an official warning. His standing at the dealership was no longer untouchable, and the pressure was starting to show. His perfect image was beginning to crumble, and he had no idea I was the one pulling the strings. It was only the first strike, but it was enough to send him reeling. Now it was time to move on to phase 2, hitting him where it hurt even more: his wallet. With Alex's career starting to teeter, it was time to attack his next vulnerability: his finances. I'd already confirmed through my friend in the financial sector that Alex was living way beyond his means. Between his leased sports car, luxury lifestyle, and gym memberships, he was juggling more debt than he could handle. All I had to do was tip the scales. My first move was simple: bring his creditors into the picture. Using the information my friend had uncovered, I anonymously sent a few emails to the financial institutions Alex owed money to. Nothing overt, just subtle inquiries about repayment terms and whether certain accounts were still current. It was enough to raise red flags. Within days, Alex started getting calls from his creditors. During one of our gym sessions, he complained about it, venting his frustration as he wiped sweat from his face. "Man, I don't know what's going on," he said. "These credit companies are hounding me all of a sudden. It's like they've got nothing better to do." I feigned concern, offering a sympathetic nod. "That sucks, dude. You think someone messed up your accounts or something?" "Probably," he muttered, shaking his head. "Or maybe they're just trying to squeeze me. Either way, it's a pain in the ass." But it didn't stop there. Through my financial contact, I learned that one of his creditors had escalated his account to collections due to missed payments. His flashy car? Days away from repossession. His financial house of cards was collapsing faster than even I had anticipated. As his financial situation deteriorated, Alex started showing signs of strain. He was distracted during our gym sessions, constantly checking his phone and muttering under his breath. His usual cocky attitude was replaced with frustration and unease. He looked like a man who was barely holding it together, and I knew it wouldn't be long before everything came crashing down. Meanwhile, Anna was completely oblivious to what was happening. She probably thought Alex's recent stress was just a rough patch at work. Little did she know, her golden boy's world was falling apart piece by piece, all thanks to me. The final blow came when Alex's car, a sleek red sports car he loved to flaunt, was repossessed right outside the gym. I wasn't there to witness it, but he told me about it later, his voice dripping with embarrassment. "They just took it," he said, shaking his head. "Right there in the parking lot. Can you believe that shit?" I hid my smirk, giving him a sympathetic pat on the back. "That's rough, man. You need a ride or something?" He waved me off, muttering something about handling it himself. But the humiliation was written all over his face. Alex's perfect life was unraveling, and he was too consumed with his own problems to focus on Anna anymore. By the end of the week, Alex had started avoiding her. His texts became sporadic, his calls infrequent. He was too busy dealing with the fallout of his crumbling life to maintain their affair. Exactly as I'd planned. It didn't take long for the pressure to become too much for Alex. His career was hanging by a thread, his finances were in shambles, and the cracks in his carefully curated image were now visible to everyone around him. The man who once bragged about his unstoppable life was now a shadow of himself, and I could see the weight of it all starting to crush him. The final straw came one evening when Alex called Anna. I wasn't privy to the conversation, but I could hear bits and pieces of it through the door. Anna's voice rose in frustration as she paced the living room, her phone pressed tightly against her ear. "What do you mean you can't see me anymore?" she demanded, her tone sharp and accusatory. "Is this about your stupid job? You said you had everything under control." I couldn't make out Alex's exact words, but it was clear he was cutting ties. His tone was low, apologetic, and Anna wasn't having any of it. "After everything? You're just giving up?" she snapped. "You're unbelievable, Alex. Unfucking believable." She hung up and threw her phone onto the couch, crossing her arms as she glared at nothing in particular. I watched her silently from the kitchen, pretending to be focused on my coffee. She hadn't even noticed me there, too caught up in her own anger and disappointment. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I heard her crying in the next room. Part of me wanted to feel something. Pity, satisfaction, maybe even a shred of regret, but I didn't. This was her price to pay. She had chosen Alex over me, betrayed the vows we made, and now she was left with nothing. Over the next few days, I noticed a change in her demeanor. She was quieter, more withdrawn, like she was mourning the loss of her shiny new toy. She didn't know that her precious Alex had been dismantled piece by my own hands. All she knew was that he was gone, and the thrill of her affair had evaporated, leaving her alone in the mess she'd created. I didn't comfort her. I didn't ask questions. I simply watched as the woman who had once thought she could have everything began to crumble under the weight of her own choices. With Alex out of the picture, it was time for the final act. I had everything I needed to confront Anna and lay her betrayal bare. There would be no excuses, no justifications. It was time for her to face the truth. The house was quiet when I finally decided to confront Anna. She was sitting in the living room, scrolling aimlessly on her phone, looking as though the weight of the last few weeks had drained her. I walked in and sat down across from her, the folder of evidence I'd compiled resting on my lap. She glanced up at me, her brow furrowing. "What's up?" she asked, her voice flat. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "We need to talk," I said, my tone calm but firm. Her eyes flickered with nervousness, but she shrugged, trying to play it cool. "Okay. About what?" About a word. I opened the folder and spread its contents across the coffee table. Screenshots of her messages with Alex, photos of the two of them at his gym, and even notes about the risky deals he'd been hiding. Her eyes widened as she looked down at the damning evidence. "What? What is this?" she stammered, her voice shaky. "This," I said, leaning forward, "is everything you've been lying about. Every text, every secret meeting, every excuse about working late. It's all here, Anna. I know everything." Her face turned pale and she shook her head, her hands trembling as she picked up one of the screenshots. "I can explain." "Don't," I interrupted, my voice sharp. "Don't insult me with excuses or lies. I've been watching you, Anna. I've seen how you've been sneaking around, laughing behind my back with Alex, acting like I'm some clueless idiot. Well, guess what? I'm not." She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. "Jake, I'm sorry," she whispered. "I was stupid. I don't know why I did it. It didn't mean anything." "Stop," I said, cutting her off. "Don't you dare try to downplay this. It didn't mean anything? You destroyed our marriage for nothing then? You betrayed me, lied to me for nothing?" Her tears spilled over and she buried her face in her hands. "I don't know what I was thinking," she sobbed. I felt trapped, like I needed something more. But it was a mistake, Jake. Please, we can fix this. I'll do whatever it takes." I leaned back in my chair, watching her crumble. A part of me wanted to feel sympathy, to remember the good times we'd shared. But all I could feel was cold resolve. "You're right about one thing," I said finally. "This was a mistake that cost you everything." I stood up and reached into the folder, pulling out the divorce papers I'd prepared. I placed them on the table in front of her, along with a pen. "You need to sign these," I said. "There's no coming back from this." Her head shot up, and she looked at me with wide, tear-streaked eyes. "Jake, no, please, don't do this. I love you. I can change. I prove it to you." "It's too late for that," I said, my voice steady. "You made your choice when you brought Alex into our lives. Now I'm making mine." She sobbed harder, but I didn't stay to watch. I walked out of the room, leaving her alone with the shattered remains of her lies. The weight that had been sitting on my chest for weeks was finally gone. I was done. The divorce was finalized within a few months. Anna didn't fight it. She knew she had no ground to stand on. I moved out of the house, leaving her with the empty shell of the life she had destroyed. It was bittersweet walking away from the place where we'd built so many memories, but I knew I needed a fresh start. At first, the silence of my new apartment felt heavy. I'd spent so much time planning and executing my revenge that I hadn't stopped to think about what life would look like after it was all over. But as the days passed, the weight lifted, little by little. I wasn't just leaving Anna behind, I was leaving behind the person I'd been in that marriage. The man who ignored the signs, who let himself be taken for granted, who thought love meant sacrificing his own happiness. And then there was Sophia. What started as a calculated move to ruin Alex's life had unexpectedly become a lifeline for me. Sophia and I had stayed in touch after Alex's downfall, and our conversations became more personal, more real. She'd always been sharp and ambitious, but I started to see a softer side of her, one that made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. One evening, she called me out of the blue. "Jake," she said, her voice hesitant, "I've been thinking about everything that happened, about us. I know it started as something else, but I think there's more here. Don't you?" I didn't hesitate. "Yeah," I said, "I think there is." From that moment, we began seeing each other more intentionally. At first, it felt strange. Could I really trust someone after everything I'd been through? But Sophia was patient. She didn't push or pry. She just showed up day after day, proving that not all relationships had to be built on lies. With Sophia, I started to feel like myself again. We laughed, we argued, we supported each other in ways that felt effortless. She helped me see that my life wasn't over because of Anna's betrayal. It was just beginning. That's not to say everything was perfect. There were scars, moments of doubt and hesitation, but I learned that moving forward didn't mean forgetting the pain. It meant using it as a foundation to build something stronger. As for Anna, I don't know where she is or what she's doing now. I stopped looking at her social media, stopped asking mutual friends about her. She became a ghost in my life, a reminder of a chapter that I closed for good. Looking back, I can't say I'm proud of everything I did. The revenge gave me control in a situation where I felt powerless, but it didn't bring me happiness. What did bring me happiness was the realization that I deserved better, and that it was okay to demand it. Now, with Sophia by my side, I'm excited for the future. The betrayal may have broken me, but it also rebuilt me into someone stronger, someone who knows his worth. And for that, I'm grateful. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Tell me what you think about that story. Have a good day, and bye.